Okay, so yes, we will discuss about objective goods today. We already introduced what Finnis means by objective goods or basic values. So those are essentially nothing but goods which are self-evident in the sense that you cannot have some external proof of them being objectively true. They are just objectively true and you intuitively grasp about them. Okay, and these objective goods are necessary for human flourishing. So if you are to consider human flourishing, okay, then you have to start with objective goods. Okay, that's essentially what he is talking about. So when Finnis talks about objective goods, so he said that there are a set of notions that he indicate the basic norms of human flourishing as goods to be pursued and realized. So these are basic norms of human flourishing. Okay, and he's not using the term good here. Okay, something that is good or bad. No, he's not using this basic goods in that term. You see that he's using the word goods, not good. Okay, because when we use the term good, we have a sense of kind of moral judgment about the thing being good or bad, isn't it? So here he's not saying that these are moral principles, these objective values or basic objective goods or basic values that he's talking about are not moral principles. You can derive moral principles from these given, okay, from these givens, okay. Those are objective goods, okay. And why are they objective? They make your life desirable. So it's not, you do not start from desire, okay. uh, your desires would make sense if those are essentially about the objective goods, okay. So that's what he says. I will not go any further because we discussed them already in great detail, okay. I think I was in the last class mentioning about the 7 different objective goods that he identifies, okay. Those 7 different objective goods, if you have read the reading, then you will see that those are life. Of course, for us to have any sort of discussion about this, we need to take life as given, isn't it? We cannot disagree about that. You intuitively grasp the value of life, okay. So yes, life is a objective good, okay. We do not need to provide you any other justification for that. Life is worth valuing, that's it, okay. After life he talks about knowledge, okay. Imagine a life without a knowledge, okay. Just doesn't make sense, okay. So as he says, okay, it all makes sense if you take objective goods to be given, okay. So knowledge is another given, okay. So here's one thing that you need to know. When he's referring to knowledge, he's not referring to knowledge as just information that you hold in your brain. No, it's little more than that, merely retention of information, okay. It's the act of knowing, and knowing is more than merely information in your head, okay. So and then the third one is play, okay. Play you can equate with any sort of play, okay, being playful, or for that matter any games, etc., okay. Everything would come within the purview of this third basic good, okay, objective good that he calls as play. Then the fourth one that he identifies as aesthetic experience, okay. So you know what that is, your perception of beauty, what is aesthetically pleasurable and what is not, okay. So that is another important objective goods, okay. So if we are to talk about our life, okay, and the projects that we take up in our life, okay, that can only be talked about in the light of these objective goods, okay. So, and the fourth one is sociability. By sociability he means that when you extend all these objective goods to others, okay, it's not just about yourself, okay, it's also about others, okay. Essentially the idea of altruism, okay. So the word that he uses for that, as I understand, is sociability. When we extend these objective goods, pursuit of these objective goods beyond our own selves. Okay, that's the idea of sociability. So sociability, or other word that you can use in its place, will be friendship. Okay, is another objective good. Okay, that is objectively true. So your friendship, yeah, is objectively true. Then the next one that he identifies is practical reasonableness. Okay, so practical reasonableness is another objective good. Now what is that, we will discuss in a while. Okay, because there are 9 requirements of practical reasonableness that we need to discuss. And finally, religion. Okay, now religion, he's not using it in the common sense of the term, the common parlance in which we use the term religion. He is using it in a more philosophical sense of the term, when you essentially think about your existence within this universe. So even if you are an atheist, if you're cogitating, contemplating about your existence within the cosmos, your thoughts, then is kind of religious in nature. So he's not using it in the traditional, conventional sense of the term. So these are the 7 basic goods that he, or basic values or objective goods that he identifies. Okay, so as I told you, these are not moral principles. So these 7, things that we just described. Okay, they are goods. They are goods to be pursued. Okay, each one of you, when you live your life, you pursue one or the other of them. So yes, that's essentially what objective goods are. So keep this in mind, that they are not moral principles. They are just objectively true, just the way deductive reasoning is true, just the way you have to accept that what you observe and experience is the reality, just the way you know that 2 plus 2 is 4. Okay, in the same way, he's saying that objective goods or basic values are also objectively true. And in our life, okay, because life in itself is an objective good, we pursue all these objective goods in the different projects in life that we take up. Okay, just like the projects that you have been assigned. Okay, just like that. Okay, you take up projects in your life as well. Okay, in those projects that you take up, you pursue one or the other, or a combination of different objective goods. Okay, that's what he's essentially saying. Okay, so these are basic, these are objective. The reason is that they are universal in nature. Okay, they will be the same everywhere. These objective goods will be the objective goods, same everywhere. So am I audible to you guys? Am I audible?
Yes, audible.
Am I understandable?
Yes, sir.
So do you guys understand the meaning of what is objective good?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if not clear, you can still ask me. Okay, so that's essentially what he's talking about, that they are self-evident, they are universally true. Okay, you do not need someone expert to tell you that okay, this is subjective good. Okay, it does not depend on conventions, it does not depend on me thinking this or him thinking that. No, they are all these are all objectively true, and that's what makes them objective good. And remember one more thing, these are not about these objective goods are not observations about human nature. We do not come to the conclusion that these are objective goods by virtue of observing what humans value. You can probably make an empirical study of that to come to the conclusion that yes, it is in fact the case. But even in the absence of those empirical data, you will still know by intuition that these are the things that are worth pursuing in life. Okay, so that's what makes them objective goods. So these are not descriptions of human nature, because someone by nature may not possess any of them, but that does not mean that that these objective goods do not exist. And one more thing that he successfully does by saying that these are objective goods which are independent of human nature is that You know that when we talk about human nature, okay, we say that, so some other earlier nature law thinkers would say that we know what we ought to do by observing what is human nature. But the problem is that when you observe something, you have descriptive account of what things are. Then how do you jump from what things are to what things ought to be? So that's the problem that Hume had identified. But for this fella, for our philosopher here, John Finnis, that problem does not even arise, because these objective goods are not descriptions of human nature. They are goods to be pursued, okay? And from that, we can come to an ought conclusion. So you are not jumping from fact to norms, you are just in the normative world in itself, okay? So that's what he does by saying that, okay, by identifying these various objective goods or basic values, okay? Now, as I told you, they are not moral goods, okay? They are not morally good, but they are merely basic good. You start with them, okay? You start with them, then you talk about morally good or morally bad, okay? They make your life worthwhile, desirable, okay? So that's what they're saying, okay? Now, one may say that, okay, how do I know that objective goods are objective goods, okay? Then he says that, well, objective goods are axiomatic truth, okay? You cannot deny without refuting yourself, okay? You cannot deny objectivity or universality of objective goods without refuting yourself, okay? How does he do that, okay? So in his book by the name Natural Law and Natural Rights, okay, the book that I'm referring to, okay, in which he came up with his idea of natural law, he talks about all these 7 different basic goods, but he focuses essentially on knowledge as a basic good, okay? So most of his justification for why the so-called objective goods are objective, he justifies that essentially taking the example of knowledge, okay? So if you ask him that what is the proof of basic good, I cannot give you any external proof, because that is not possible, because they are axiomatic, they are universally true. But he says that you cannot deny their objectivity without refuting yourself. So how does he do that? So let's take the example of knowledge, as he says, okay? He says that we cannot deny objectivity of knowledge as an objective good, okay? So what does he mean by that? So someone says that I think that knowledge is not an objective good, okay? When someone says that knowledge is, that he or she thinks that knowledge is not an objective good, he or she is telling you that the assertion that he or she is making, that knowledge is not an objective good, is something worth knowing, isn't it? Something worth accepting, something worth knowing, isn't it? So when you do that, you are saying that, even when you are saying that knowledge is not worth having, you are nonetheless saying that the set piece of knowledge that you have just told me, that knowledge is not worth having, is worth having, isn't it? So you are essentially refuting yourself, okay? So this is the reasoning that Finnis is providing to say that yes, you cannot say that objective goods are not objective without refuting yourself. Did you guys understand what I just tried to explain and how I tried to explain?
Yes, sir.
Explain once again.
So you have this example given in the book, okay, in the reading, okay? Anyone here who is not clear with this explanation?
So can you explain once again?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
So, sir, up to my understanding, sir, I have a doubt here.
Yes, tell me.
This is the point where I think this video you referred of 2 hours was worth watching. Because, sir, according to sir Patrick Churchland, he was telling that sir, science can derive that from where the objective goods come. But it can't predict that what are the objective goods. But when we see the John Finnis seven objective goods, that is knowledge, play, aesthetic, sociability, of friendship, practical wisdom, and religion. So it has been very much narrowed down, sir. Then
see, here's the thing, okay? I think even in consequentialist philosophies, okay, so essentially whenever we talk about scientific approach, we are talking about consequentialist approach, okay? Even when we talk about consequentialist philosophies, there are times that we have to, when we do the calculation, we have to take something as given. So for example, if you have observed Sam Harris explaining his scientific approach to what is good and what is not good, he has to start with human flourishing as something to be given. Okay, if we disagree that, if you and I disagree that human flourishing does not even exist, okay, if we do not agree on that, okay, then we cannot have any further discussion. We cannot have that. So we have to accept human flourishing to be given, to be able to talk in terms, in certain scientific terms, okay, about what ought to be done in order to pursue the same, that is, pursue human flourishing. Okay, so even in consequentialist philosophies, you have to take something as given. Okay, but they do not come to the same conclusion as this guy does, Finnis does. Okay, Finnis identifies 7 different objective goods. Many would disagree with this. Okay, in fact, this is too early for me to introduce higher readings to you guys. But yeah, you are introduced to them, some of them in the videos that I have shared. Okay, so kindly refer to them, engage with those ideas. But given the paucity of time, I cannot go in any more detail than that. But there are many thinkers who I can tell you say that, well, Finnis comes to those particular conclusions about what objective goods are. It's not independent of his experiences. It's precisely because of what he had experienced in his life that he has come to the conclusion about those seven basic objective goods. Go somewhere, some deprived countries, okay, where someone doesn't even have something to eat. Tell that person to appreciate what is value, what is play, or what is aesthetic experience. Okay, what value will these objective goods hold for them? Okay, what would these objective goods mean to them? Okay, but then I think Finnis would say in those situations that it doesn't depend on whether someone is actually being able to pursue them or not. That's secondary. But if we are to conceptualize a world of a normative world, we have to start with objective goods. That's what Finnis would say. Now, coming to this instant, Sumitra's, any more discussion, you can always get in touch with me. I can discuss that with you. But because I do not have much time, I'll have to revert back to the topic here. Okay. So yes, I would like to try and explain how objective goods are objective, as Finnis says, taking the example of knowledge. He says that objective goods are objectively true. They are axiomatic. Okay. That means I cannot give you any further proof, okay, empirical proof, and then say that, okay, this is how it works. Okay, you have to take it to be given. Okay, so now, for example, if you do not accept the rule of induction, okay, even empirical proof will not be sufficient for you. Okay, so yes, you have to take something to be given to be able to have any meaningful discussion. Okay, so in this instant case, he's saying that objective goods are objective because they're objectively true. You cannot deny their objectivity without refuting yourself. Okay, so sorry. So how does he do that? He takes the example of knowledge. Okay, he says knowledge is objectively true. You may disagree with him. Okay, so if you were in disagreement with him, if you are disagreeing with him, then you will say that no, knowledge is not objectively true. Now try and understand. When you say that your assertion is that knowledge is not worth having, what you are essentially saying that what you have just said, that knowledge is not something worth having, in itself is a knowledge, isn't it? And you are saying that that is something that's worth having. Okay, if you're not saying that, then you are not stating anything. Okay, you are not effectual there in any way. Okay, your assertion is not effectual there in any way. So you are asking me to know that knowledge is not worth having. But then in saying so, you are saying that that specific knowledge is worth having, isn't it? That means you are refuting yourself. That you're just saying that at the end of the day, you're saying that knowledge is something that's worth having. That's what Finnis is saying. Did you guys understand now? Any confusion still? Others?
Yes, sir.
So it's a bit tricky. I mean, one can still say that, well, which knowledge? But then Finnis is not saying that this or that knowledge, okay? That will be basically reference to some information, but I'm not referring to information, as I said earlier. I make a distinction between knowledge and information, okay? But then if you read the book by Nigel E. Simmons, there he tries to say that not all information is worth having. Okay, so he gives you the example of someone who's trying to remember all the number plates that he comes across at a traffic intersection. Then you ask that, why are you doing this? Then he has to say that he can tell you that knowledge is worth having, but then it seems ridiculous that someone just remembers all the number plates out there just because knowledge is worth having. So when he says that, he's saying that, well, some informations are worth having, some are not, okay? But then I think Simmons' target here is not knowledge itself, okay? Because when Finnis is talking about knowledge, he's not talking about this knowledge or that knowledge. By that, when I say this knowledge and that knowledge, I'm essentially referring only to information. But Finnis is not referring to information. He's saying that knowledge in itself is a objective good. Now, this is how he tries to say that, objective goods are objectively true. You cannot deny them without refuting yourself, okay? Now, he only takes this objective good to justify how objective goods are objective. Regarding others, he expects you to just believe that they are objectively true. So the others, as you remember, life, okay? Yes, it's not very difficult for me to tell you that life is an objective good, because everything else is possible only when we are alive, isn't it? We are living, okay? So life in itself is an objective good, okay? And apart from that, what else do you have? You have knowledge that we just discussed. He says play is another objective good, aesthetic experience. Someone, for example, who loves art, someone who loves music, okay? These are cases of aesthetic experience, okay? Those are also objective goods. Those are also something that makes your life worthwhile. Think of it, okay? The projects that you can take up in your life. You could be a footballer, okay? You could be a basketball player. You could be a singer. You could be an artist, okay? So you could be anything. You could be a great scientist. You could be a philosopher, okay? Whatever it is that you do, you are pursuing one of these objective goods, okay? We are not concerned about anything else. We start with objective goods, and if you are pursuing objective goods, that's what makes your life worthwhile. So this is what he says. So accordingly, he identifies other objective goods like sociability, practical reasonableness, and religion. Ultimately, I tried to explain this in simpler words earlier, but we'll go into details in the course of time. Okay. Now. Objective goods are not enough, okay? Objective goods are merely objective goods, okay? They do not tell us what is right and what is wrong, okay? Or what is the right thing to do, what is the morally right thing to do. So how do we know about what is the morally right thing to do? What is, natural, what is, natural law, okay? What is the morally right thing to do? That we can do by applying practical reasonableness, okay? If you remember, practical reasonableness is also one of the basic goods, okay? Objective goods, okay? When you apply practical reasonableness to those objective goods, then you arrive at the right conclusion about what's the right thing to do, how you ought to live your life, okay? So that's what he says, okay? Now, the thing is that practical reasonableness, okay, in short we call it PR, okay? Practical reasonableness also has 9 different aspects to it, 9 different aspects to it that you have to keep in mind, okay, while doing your practical reasonableness. These are the requirements of practical reasonableness that you have to keep in mind to arrive at the right conclusion about what to do and what not to do. And what those things are, those are first, coherent plan of life. Okay, let me talk about this in a certain context. Okay, so for example, you have been given a project to write for the subject, okay, for the subject of jurisprudence. You have also been given other projects for other subject. Okay, now let's think about these projects in terms of your life. Okay, you are living your life, you have taken up certain projects in your life, just like the way you have been given a project in jurisprudence. Okay, you have a project in life. So for example, you want to be a lawyer, you want to be some philosopher, whatever, you want to be someone, and you want to be doing something in life. Okay, when you live your life, you have to decide on what you want to do, okay, and whether what you want to do is the right thing to do. Okay, now there could be many right things to do. Okay, it's not necessary that there is only one right thing to do. There could be many different right things to do. That means you can take up many different projects in life. Okay, but you cannot take up 1,000 different projects, because you cannot be efficient enough to be doing all those projects in your life. Okay, so for many different reasons like the ones that I just gave you, he lays down certain requirements. Okay, certain principles of practical reasonableness that you need to keep in mind to arrive at the right conclusion about what to do. Okay, so these 9 are the requirements of practical reasonableness. And what are those? A coherent plan of life. Now let us relate this with a project. So when you are assigned a project, you need to have a coherent plan about what you are going to do. It cannot be just copy paste. Okay, then you are not practically reasonable, as he would say. Okay, the same goes for your life, that when you take up certain project in your life, you have to have a coherent plan in life. Okay, so you haven't joined this law university just by accident, and if you have done that, okay, by merely accident, then you're not doing the right thing. You have to have a coherent plan of life. Okay, so that's what he's saying. I'm trying to simplify what he's trying to say here. Okay, the next important requirement is that not having arbitrary preference amongst basic goods. So he gives you 7 basic goods. Okay, life, knowledge, play, aesthetic experience, etc. Okay, so you choose them. Okay, you choose among them. Okay, you cannot have all of them. Okay, as the basic good that you prefer. Okay, so you have to prefer 1 or 2 or 3 basic goods, okay, in your life for the projects that you take up. Okay, but when you do that, you cannot be arbitrary in your preference. Okay, so he's saying, so that relates to the first one. So when you have a coherent plan in life, that means your choice about those basic goods cannot be arbitrary. Okay, you are not just thrown in it. Okay, it has to be a reasonable preference of the basic goods. So for example, you want to be a good lawyer, you want to be a good player, you want to be a good singer, you choose that accordingly. It's not merely an arbitrary preference. So someone does not throw you into it. The choice is yours. Okay, so that's the liberal aspect of his philosophy. You can choose whatever you want, but the choice is yours. Okay, the preference is not arbitrary, it's your choice. Then the same goes for your projects. Okay, so the funny thing is that we give you projects, so that's kind of arbitrary. But then I'm talking about projects in your life here. Okay, not just those silly jurisprudence projects. Okay, so those projects that you take up in your life cannot be arbitrary. Okay, among different basic goods. The third one is not having an arbitrary preference amongst persons. Okay, now when you take up projects in your life, quite often you have to share those projects with others. Okay, so when you do that, your preference for persons, you take a project with, will not be arbitrary. Okay, it cannot be arbitrary. Okay, so that's the third requirement. Okay, and then the fourth one is having a sense of detachment from all the specific and limited project one undertakes. Okay, so that's essentially what he's saying is that Don't be caught up in one project so much that you are disconnected from others. Okay, so he's saying that you should have a sense of detachment from all the specific and limited projects that you undertake. Okay, so that's the fourth requirement. The fifth requirement is not abandoning your general commitments lightly. So you also, along with the projects, you have general commitments in life, don't you? You obviously do. Okay, it's not just your project that you are pursuing in your life. Okay, so when you pursue a particular project, you cannot be forgetting about other general commitments. So for example, when you are writing a project for my subject, you cannot forget that you also have to attend classes, you also have to do other things here in your life. Okay, silly example, but that's what he's saying. When you take up some project in your life, okay, you cannot abandon the general commitments that you have just lightly. So you have to not forget about general commitments that you have. Okay, and then the sixth requirement that he says is that essentially a kind of efficiency within reason. Okay, so as you know that he is a philosopher who's not consequentialist. Okay, but by that he does not mean that when you reasoning within the project that you have taken up, okay, in the light of the objective good, that you will not be efficient in that reasoning. So you will, within the project that you have taken, okay, as long as you do not go against those objective goods, can also take up the efficient way of doing some project. Okay, by efficient way, I'm not, so for example, one efficient way of writing jurisprudence project will be to cheat. Okay, that's not what he is saying. Okay, he's saying that there is a efficient way of writing a project. You do not just find all the readings out there and then just read them. It will take you forever. You'll have to find what's the best, what's the most relevant reading for the instant jurisprudence project. Okay, so that's the kind of reasoning he's referring to. But those efficiency in reasoning will not go against the objective goods. That's something that you have to keep in mind. Okay, then the seventh requirement that he identifies is that respecting every basic value in every act by never choosing against a basic good. Okay, so this is in relation to the earlier basic goods that we have discussed. Okay, he's essentially saying that when you choose a basic good, okay, you do not choose it as against other. Okay, so basic goods are incommensurable. Okay, you do not compare one basic goods with another. Okay, one basic good with another. So there you essentially have to respect every single objective good. So even if you haven't taken up one of those objective goods, other might have, you will not say that that's worse than the objective good that I have chosen for me. So you have to have a respect for every aspect, every objective good. So someone wants to be a cricketer, fine, good. Someone wants to be a scientist, fine, good. We do not compare how good a scientist is with how good a cricketer is. We do not do that. It's just incommensurable. So there has to be a respect for each of these objective goods. Okay, so that's what he's saying, that respecting every basic value in every act by never choosing against a basic good. So when you do that, you are basically comparing, but they are incomparable, they are incommensurable. Then the eighth requirement that he says is that of favoring and fostering the common good of one's community. Okay, ultimately, when you take up objective goods, okay, you cannot be completely selfish about the objective goods that you have chosen. You also have to extend it to others. So remember, one of the objective goods is sociability or friendship. Okay, that is essential here, that when you do practical reasoning, okay, you cannot be focused only on yourself. You also have to extend those objective goods, okay, to others. You have to realize that you exist in a society and there are other compatriots who are also pursuing their own objective goods. Okay, quite often one objective good that you are pursuing could be in conflict with others. Then you have to think of a way of pursuing objective goods so that one is not in conflict with the other. So how do we do that? And when we do that, we come to something known as common good. And ultimately, the last one is quite general, is that following one's conscience. Okay, your conscience will be guide to whether you are doing the right thing or not. Okay, so now these are the 9 different requirements of practical reason, which in itself is an objective good. when you apply to the objective goods that he has identified, you come to right conclusion about what to do. Essentially, you come to principles of morality. Okay, so different principles of morality. So this is the theory he essentially comes up with. Okay, so are you guys with me so far? See, because I do not have much time, I thought I will complete it today. Apparently, I'm not able to.
Yes, sir.
Any confusion if you may have, you can ask me. So I hope this is clear. Okay, now as I told you, these objective goods, those 7 objective goods that I have mentioned earlier, are just objectively true. They are not descriptions of human nature. Okay, they are just objectively true. When you apply those 9 requirements of practical reasonableness, which in itself is an objective good, to the objective goods, you come to the right conclusion about what you ought to do. So that's his idea of natural law. You come to conclusions about natural law, what you ought to do, and in that you do not jump from the world of fact to the world of norms. You are already in the world of norms. Okay, you are reasoning within the world of norms. That is from objective goods to specific normative conclusions. So that's the idea. Okay, now there are many more things that I can talk about, but I think I will only get you guys confused. Okay, so here's one thing that we will deal with. I think for today the time's up, so in the next class I will just take 10-15 minutes to complete this, and then we can proceed to the next school of jurisprudence, that is positive. I think I'll have to take the next class as well because it's a long topic.